pre-release period. But I guess we have now played more games. We have now got more impressions. And I think it's fair to say that similar to what we've seen with DLSS and FSR2 on PC, the success of PSSR basically changes the success level, the quality level, if you like, changes on an implementation based basis from one title to the next. John, got any notes about PSSR in the games you've tested?
Oh boy, do I, Rich. There are some huge improvements here. The big, well, FF7 Rebirth is arguably the largest one, but we'll get to that. But the one that surprised me that hasn't been talked about yet is Stellar Blade. I love Stellar Blade, but its original display modes have what I would say is relatively poor TAA implementation with a lot of noise, shimmering, sparkle. If you just stand still and look at the image, you actually see this noise in motion, and it does not look good. And I talked about this in my original video. Only the balanced mode was okay, but even that was somewhat noisy. So for the PS5 Pro patch, they've actually added 2 modes. One of them I think is very strange. The other one is amazing. So the amazing one uses PSSR instead of the prior TAA solution. And it also unlocks a high frame rate mode, which relies on VRR. And this one's that's a little bit weird because it does switch to 120 hertz output, but it seems to essentially cap itself at 80 frames per second, which they specify in their update text is like, yeah, you can enjoy it at 80 frames per second. So the game runs at 80 FPS then with VRR then. So it does feel noticeably smoother. It's just, I feel like it could possibly go higher. Cutscenes though are always limited to 60, so they come back down. But either way, 60, 80, it is very nice looking now on a good screen. That is for sure. And if you're not on a VRR screen, you just get 60 FPS, right? Mm-hmm. Now, PSSR, though, my goodness, it completely changes the image and it just resolves so much more detail and cleans up so much noise. And it winds up massively improving the visuals overall, I would say. In what was a somewhat dirty looking game at times, it makes it look super smooth and clean. And it is a gigantic leap. It's probably the best implementation I've seen yet, just in terms of improving overall image quality, maybe. And stability. Stability is key. It's temporally stable now, whereas before it was not. Which is why the Pro Max mode, as they call it, taking one from Apple perhaps, is so strange. That one, with high frame rate mode engaged anyway, limits itself to 50 frames per second. And the way they describe this is essentially, this is the original version's quality mode, which was kept at 30 frames per second, but now it runs at 50 frames per second. But it does not use PSSR. It uses the original TAA, but it's native 4K. But the thing is that even though it's a lower internal res, the PSSR mode looks significantly better than the native 4K image with TAA. Wow. Like it really is. It just, the detail, the resolution, everything, the way the temporal stability, it's all improved, which is why I feel like the Pro Max mode ends up being kind of useless, because I think the image quality is technically worse, even if the resolution is higher, and it's capped at 50 frames per second if you're on HFR. Otherwise, it's just the 30 FPS quality mode on a non-VR 120 hertz screen. So there's weirdness there, but if you can use, I recommend the normal Pro mode with PSSR. That's a game changer. Just like it was, we've talked about this before, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Again, seeing more areas in that, it makes such a difference. It is so much sharper and cleaner than the original version, and it runs very smooth now. I feel like even with the visual flaws the game has, it just feels much more coherent now, because the muddy, smeary look of the game originally kind of just made the assets that didn't look good, it made them look a lot worse, and it did not elevate the good assets.
You fixated on them a bit.
Right. Yeah. You fixated on them. That's all gone now, and it just feels so much better as a result. So I really want to play through the game now, because it makes a difference. Another one, though, that I wanted to mention is actually Demon Souls, the remake from Bluepoint, which, again, in its original state, they had a 1440p mode at 60 and a native 4K mode at 30. And I think the PSSR mode, which is 60 FPS, looks better than both. You maybe get a little additional detail resolved in the native 4K mode, but there's much more there's more stair-stepping aliasing within the surfaces and just more visual noise. Like, it's less effective as a TAA. The TAA is less effective in that original 4K 30 mode. And as a result, the new PSSR mode, it's so much more temporally stable, and it resolves more detail in a way that I find much cleaner and more visually nice. I also discovered, I haven't played this game since launch. I loaded up I did a New Game Plus on my finished save, and boy, the New Game Plus mode or whatever, the second round is extremely hard. It is way, way hard.